What's up, guys? Dennis here. Hope you're doing good. In this video, I want to talk about something that's super important. This will be a quick video, but I wanted to mention something that I've learned along the way. I wanted to include in the series and closer to the beginning of the series because it's something that you should know from the beginning, especially if you're kind of a beginner, you just started pursuing your goals, working on different businesses, going down certain paths that are maybe not as popular. You just started personal development and growth and health and all that stuff. And this is something that I think you should know in the beginning, right off the bat, for anyone that's pursuing something that's important to them. And this is something that I learned over time, and I wanted to include it in the series because I think it's important enough to make a video on it. And the topic of the video is be very careful who you share your goals with, your dreams with, your progress with, what you're working on. Be very careful who you talk to. From experience, what I find is once you start telling people that are close to you, whether friends, family, coworkers, certain things like that, even strangers or just associates that you may not know as much or as well, but once you start doing that, you're going to do what's called polarizing your audience. And that means you're going to get people either to the left or the right. Because right now they're kind of mixed in. As long as you're kind of where you're at, you're going to have certain friendships that work, certain relationships that work. But once you believe in something, once you're working towards something, once you're committed and convicted about something, you've pretty much taken a stand on something. And once you take a stand on something, you're going to run into people that don't agree with what you're doing. Because when things are kind of mixed up and gray, there isn't a left or a right. But once you take a stand on something, you're firm on something, now you start polarizing your relationships, polarizing the people around you, and you're going to find people that are with you and people that are not with you. And this is kind of a little bit of a piggyback to the other video that I made, creating a winning mindset. And if you haven't watched that video, highly recommend you watch that one right after this, because there's going to be certain things that kind of play off of each other. But I mentioned in that video that there's something that you have to understand about where you are and who you are if you're watching this video. Right now, you are, or you're about to, if you're not already, you're about to swim upstream, or you're swimming upstream already. And maybe you have been. And by that I mean you're different. What you're doing is not a popular choice. Going after your goals and staying committed to those is not a popular choice or decision. So you're swimming upstream. It doesn't matter what you're even pursuing, but you're swimming upstream. And most people are swimming downstream. And what that means is once you change direction and you're going kind of against what other people are doing, you're going to bring on certain obstacles. You're going to find that there's more friction in what you're trying to do, because it's not the popular decision. And you may or may not bring negativity to your life that's brought on by other people that you already have a relationship with or may create relationships with in the future. And this is something that I realized myself. So I want you to understand this, because this is going to set the proper expectation. And again, this is really piggybacking off of that other video that I just mentioned. But this is part of the mindset that you have to have, because when you know this, you have the proper expectations. And what I find from my personal experience is that what you're going to work on is probably going to take more time than you think. It's going to take more investment than you think, investment in many ways. And it's going to take more effort than you think. And I say that because it's important to understand that once you start telling people what you're working on, what you're doing, where you are and your progress, what your goals are, people are going to start questioning what you're doing. They may or may not support you. They may or may not take you seriously and whatnot. So if you start telling people what you're doing, you've almost established kind of like a timeline or something. Now you're going to have people that are, over time, they're going to question what you're doing. Hey, how's this going? Or how's that thing that you're doing? Or whatever the case may be. And if you're not where you want to be, you might be okay with that. But by now letting other people know what you're doing, you're going to bring on more pressure, possibly more negativity and that sort of thing. So I say that because from experience, and I apply this to a lot of things, have been and will continue to, but I believe that if you just keep your goals and your visions, your beliefs, the things you're strong about, the things that are important to you off the radar, if you keep it to yourself where it really belongs, because those are your goals and it's all, things that are personal to you. If you keep them underground, you can postpone the negativity, the opinions, the attention. It might seem like the attention or letting other people know what you're working on might seem like the smart decision, or might not seem like a big deal. But if you haven't been down that path, you're going to realize that there's going to be people that are for you and people that are against you. And what you don't want to do, and this is the reason why I'm making this video, what you don't want to do is talk too much too soon. Because, again, you're going to put yourself in a position where now you're trying to prove something to other people rather than do something that you started on that's important to you and do that for yourself, or maybe for whoever else that you're trying to benefit. And that's important to understand. There's no reason to feel like you owe anyone an explanation or like you need to talk about what you're working on. There's a lot of power in doing what you want for yourself and not tying yourself to having to prove anything to anyone under any certain time frame or any of that stuff. And what you might do if you go down that path, is just attract that negativity to you too soon. It might throw you off course if you're not there emotionally. That could affect you. If it's people that are close to you, that might affect you more. If it's friends or family, there's the likelihood, if it's something that, I don't know, might ruffle other people's feathers, whatever it is, they may not hang out with you as much. They might not call you as much, or whatever, because sometimes chasing after what's important to you and having a specific mindset kind of pushes people away. They kind of feel uncomfortable because you're progressing and they're not. You're putting them in a position where you have things to talk about, things you're happy for, and they might not be doing anything, and you might question them like, hey, why are you doing this and that? Because you're doing those things, and they're not going to feel comfortable around you, and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of situations that can arise from that. But I wanted to make the video because I think it's very, very important to touch on this for your own benefit. You don't owe anyone an explanation, and I would highly recommend just working on whatever it is that you're working on. If it's important to you, work on it underground, off the radar. There's no reason to tell everybody what you're working on. Keep that stuff off of social media. Keep your relationships off of social media. Keep your businesses and that sort of thing off of social media. Keep your business out of other people's business. And what that allows you to do is just work at your pace, at your time, without negativity, without unnecessary pressure, without unnecessary attention. And you can just keep things as they are. And then if you want to talk later after you've accomplished certain things, you're going to feel better, because it's always better to talk about what you've done rather than what you're doing or what you're going to do. So give yourself the room to grow. Give yourself the opportunity to take the time required to put in the work, the investment at your pace, without the unnecessary pressures of just having people on top of you or questioning things, or maybe bringing in tension to certain relationships that you might have and that sort of thing. And do things at your pace. And I think that that's highly, highly crucial to know and important to apply. That's something that I realized myself. And when you're working on your stuff, again, you don't owe anybody an explanation. So just do what you want to do at your pace, off the radar. Might not seem like a big deal, but it could be. It could be, depending on your situation. So, what you don't want to do is, focus on a goal, tell people you're going to do this and that, and then slack off. And then they start looking at you like, oh yeah, you told me you were going to do that a long time ago. Then people don't believe in you and all this stuff. And you just bring unnecessary crap that you don't need to deal with. Slacking off happens sometimes, or maybe it's not a certain time in your life. You might not have that place in your life where you're ready to do certain things, or something might come up that's an obstacle or a distraction, and you might not accomplish certain goals at the time frames that you think. From experience, again, things take longer than you think they're going to take, so you have to give yourself that breathing room and that buffer room to do certain things. So try not to involve other people in what you're doing. Keep your business to yourself. Work on stuff, and then when you want to talk about the results that you've accomplished, then you can talk about that, because no one can question that. You've already done it, so it's better to just talk about what you've already done rather than what you're going to do, what you plan on doing. A lot of times too, when you tell too many people what you're going to do, things don't happen the way that you want them to, or in the time frame that you want, and again, it just makes you look bad. So just keep your stuff off the radar, and only talk to people that that support you or are doing what you're doing. And that's a huge thing, because that's when you find the people that you're going to connect with the most, the people that are into what you're into, the people that believe in what you believe in, right? So it's not a bad thing to put your foot down, have convictions, and be committed to what you're working on. It just can turn into a bad situation for you that's not beneficial for you if you're talking about those things to the wrong people. As I mentioned before in the other video, you were swimming upstream, and those people are not going to understand you because they're going downstream. They don't know your game, they don't know your mission, they don't know what your beliefs are, they don't know your purposes or your motivations. They don't know any of that, they don't care about any of that. So you tell somebody, oh, I'm going to do this and that, yeah, whatever, we'll see, or this and that. They'll try to distract you or talk down whatever your plans are because they didn't do anything with their lives, or they're not doing anything. They want to feel comfortable with you staying where you're at. I'm going to tell you what's going to end up happening is when you start progressing, people are going to look at you differently, and that may be a good thing or a bad thing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because again, you're doing this for you, not for anybody else. So again, coming back to the idea, the point that you don't have to tell anybody about what you're doing. Just do what you got to do off the radar, put in the work, get the results, and then if you want to talk, you can talk. And if someone doesn't like that you progress, that doesn't really matter, because it's for you. You did it for you, not for anybody else. So rather than take on everyone's opinions ever or too soon, I would rather you focus on what you got to do, completely off the grid. Give yourself the time to grow, time to do the work. Give yourself some buffer for things maybe not happening in the time frames that you want. Maybe some room for things changing. You might think you're going to focus on one thing. A couple months down the line, you're interested in something else, or something else comes up that you think makes more sense, or you're going to do that certain thing in a different way, whatever the case may be. But I've done a lot of different things, tried a lot of different things to understand how this works. And usually progress is not an A to B thing. You're going to do a lot of circles. Sometimes you take steps to the side. Maybe you go to the left or the right instead of going forward. Maybe you go backwards a little bit before you can go forward. Sometimes you got to slow down before you can speed up. And that's really the message of the video. I don't want to make it a long one, but I think it's important enough to keep in the series, and again, put towards the beginning of the series so that you know sooner rather than later. So I hope you guys got something out of that. Let me know in the comments, chat me, call me, text me, message me on Facebook, Instagram, email me if you have any questions or need help with anything. So hope you guys got something out of that. I'll see you in the next video.